A dangerous new race to build nuclear weapons could be underway, according to a leading research body tracking global arms stockpiles. In its annual report, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, also known as SIPRI, has highlighted a trend of growing nuclear stockpiles. According to its findings, nearly all of the world's 9 nuclear-armed states are modernizing and upgrading existing weapons and adding new ones. Currently, the US and Russia own 90% of the warheads, while China's nuclear arsenal is developing the fastest. And we can welcome Dan Smith, the director of SIPRI, who's joining us now from Paris. Welcome, Dan. Thank you for your time. Now, your latest report says that a dangerous new nuclear arms race is emerging. Tell us more about this. What concerns you most about what you're seeing?
So there are two things. The first is that nuclear weapon numbers have been declining for about 35 years, since the late 1980s. The total in the mid-1980s was about 64,000, 65,000 warheads worldwide. Today, there's 12,240. That's a good news story. But underneath that decline, there's started to be an increase in the number of warheads. This is largely to do with China. It's also partly to do with India. And we begin to see signs that this might soon be to do with the USA and Russia. The second thing is that, as you said in your introduction, as we've highlighted, almost all the nuclear weapon owning states are enhancing their nuclear weapons. And as they do so, we are moving into the territory of new technologies. We're moving a lot into outer space technology being an important part of this, cyber and artificial intelligence. And the new nuclear arms race is going to be more complex than the previous one. Firstly, because there are 3 great powers now, not 2. So that will make it harder to control and to limit, to come to agreement. And secondly, because an awful lot of the competition is going to be in the software, not in the hardware. And it's easy to count warheads. It's not so easy to count who's ahead in software.
You mention in your report that arms control regimes, so agreements, have been severely weakened. Tell us why that is.
In the deterioration of relationship between the USA and its allies on the one hand and Russia on the other over the past 10 to 15 years, arms control has been one of the casualties. So, in fact, Russia pulled out of the Conventional Forces in Europe Treaty, which affects non-nuclear weapons. The USA pulled out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, which was the one that got rid of cruise missiles and Pershing IIs and the SS-20, the weapons that worried us all back in the 1980s. And the last piece standing is known as New START, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. It was agreed in 2010, came into force in 2011, lasted for 10 years with a 5-year renewal clause, which was taken up. When President Biden was inaugurated, almost the first thing he did in 2021 was to agree with President Putin that they would extend the life of that treaty. But there's been no talk since. There's been no preparation of a new agreement. So I'm afraid that we're entering a period when there will be no arms control agreements on nuclear weapons. It's very worrying, I'm afraid.
That sounds extremely worrying. I wanted to talk about Israel. It doesn't acknowledge nuclear capabilities. It's believed to be modernizing its nuclear arsenal, according to your report. Iran has nuclear ambitions. How might the fighting that we're seeing between these two powers influence the threat of nuclear escalation?
Well, it has been a priority, you could almost say an obsession, of Prime Minister Netanyahu and of a large part of the Israeli security establishment to prevent Iran from going any further towards having nuclear weapons. Now, it's not as close as some people think, because although it has enriched uranium considerably, it still remains well short of the level at which you can make nuclear weapons. Once it has enough uranium enriched as much as you need to, it's then got to make bombs. And then it's got to get those bombs into warhead shape and put them on missiles without reducing the range of those missiles. So there's still a lot of work to do if it's going in that direction, which is unproven. It's a speculation. So I suppose you could say that if Israel, which is targeting Iran's nuclear capacity and nuclear knowledge at the moment, if it's successful as it hopes to be, it will be a bulwark of further years before Iran would go nuclear. But of course, it will also build resentment, grievance, and inertia. I think the effect is hard to calculate.
All right, we will have to leave it there. Dan Smith, Director of the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.